Welcome to all the participants. Thank you for being here today for our webinar on how diversity drives creativity. Once again, my name is Matthew Quint. I am director of the Center on Global Brand Leadership at Columbia Business School. And I'm delighted to be hosting Janeya Griffin, Vincent Bragg, our moderator, Tim Jones, along with, you may hear from my colleague, Evangeline Liu, who is helping out on the back end of this. So this is a webinar substitute for what was supposed to be one of the sessions at our annual flagship conference, the Bright Conference for Brands, Innovation, and Technology. And I first found out about ConCreates through contact with 72andSunny and talking with Tim and his team. And he brought up this fascinating new agency that they were working with and had a very interesting model around working specifically with current and formerly incarcerated individuals, and is founded by formerly incarcerated individuals. Vincent, and then Janeya was brought in as a partner, and I will let them tell their story in more detail. This issue itself is actually of interest at Columbia Business School. In particular, our colleagues at the Tamer Center on Social Enterprise run a program called the Re-Entry Acceleration Program, which brings incarcerated individuals and students and faculty together to help these individuals gain business skills, as well as working with the business community to help change attitudes, policies, and processes around hiring formerly incarcerated individuals. And Professor Damon Phillips leads this and has been working on research around the value of entrepreneurship to those who are formerly incarcerated, because of often how difficult, because of stigma and discrimination, getting back into the normal workforce can be. So delighted to be hosting this webinar that will talk not just about that, but of course how they've utilized these experiences to drive creativity and work on helping others do the same. So little notes here, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen if you want to ask any questions. We'll start off with a little bit of introduction. Tim will moderate a few questions, and then we will definitely jump to questions from the audience. Depending on the size here, I may be even able to open up the mic for some of you to ask your question verbally. If I do that, please try to keep your question short and brief. I will bring that up, but by asking it via that Q&A feature, I will be able to unmic you. And we will be doing one little poll, so get ready for that over the course of this. And without further ado, let me pass things off to Tim Jones, the Executive Strategy Director of 72andSunny. Please take it away, Tim.
Thanks, Matthew, and thanks everybody for joining. Just by way of introduction, yes, I'm the Exec Strat Director of 72andSunny in New York. That means I just look after the brand strategy for a number of our clients, and 72andSunny is a global advertising agency representing some of culture's most impactful brands, everything from the NFL to Grubhub. So that's what we do. Now, as a company, we often recommend to our clients and brands that they have a social purpose. And a few years ago, we decided to create one for ourselves. So our social purpose is to expand and diversify the creative class. And that just means we're involved in all sorts of initiatives and efforts that meet that aim, not just because we think that improving diversity in our industry is the right thing to do, and it certainly is, but we believe that creativity needs diversity. And that without that, we're going to continue to make the kind of slip-ups that you might have seen in commercials from Pepsi and everything else, but also just fail to represent the people that we serve. And so we're always on the lookout to partner with companies that live that same mission. And, no one is aggressively expanding and diversifying the creative class, perhaps as much as ConCreates. So when we heard about what these guys are up to and their inspiring mission, their vision, the kind of the energy, we had to get involved. So 72andSunny partners with ConCreates to help them develop into a sustainable business that can stand on their own 2 feet and represent their own clients. And I'd love to say that after 18 months, they're well on their way to doing that. So it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Vincent and Janeya to introduce themselves and ConCreates.
I guess it's me now, right? Hi, everyone. I'm Vincent Bragg. I am founder and CEO of ConCreates, which essentially is an agency completely powered by formerly and incarcerated people, right? So essentially, I went to prison. Let's just put it out there. Went to prison, and during my time in prison, I got a chance to get to know myself. I got to really understand like the value of my mind and my creativity. And I studied, I read a bunch of books, wrote a couple books, and happened to meet some other guys that thought the same way. And we ended up launching ConCreates from behind bars after we participated in kind of like a PR move for a startup company we happened to be in prison with the founder of. And it essentially skyrocketed the company's sales and sparked something within us that said, hey, we could do this for other brands. And the mission has been forever to change the narrative and the stigma of how society views people with criminal history, but most importantly, how people with criminal history view themselves. And so I feel like we have the pleasure and the honor to do that every single day with conferences like this and just the work that we do. And so once I was released from prison, I joined a program called Defy Ventures, which is a prisoner entrepreneurship program where I was able to gain mentorship. And during that mentorship run, I met Tim Jones. I met my co-founder, Janeya Griffin. And what ConCreates is now is a result of that. And so one of the things I like to do normally when I have these opportunities to talk to people is I like to ask a series of questions that just helps me to get to know the folks in the room. And because I'm unable to see any of you, we're just gonna put out a poll that I would love for you to fill out. And so yeah, would like to ask a few questions if you guys don't mind.
Great, Vincent. I've launched it, so you should see it up there. You can walk them through it.
I do not see it, but I will just ask the question. So one question is, have you ever been in a physical altercation with someone, whether it's a sibling, your best friend, some random person? Here we go. Have you ever been out and had drinks and drove home? Have you ever urinated in public?
We should say all these answers are anonymous, just in case you're wondering.
Sure, yes. Yeah. All of the answers, like we don't have an opportunity to see who said what. That's not even the purpose of this.
Yeah. Thank you for the reminder, Tim.
Have you ever just been accused of doing something that you didn't do? And my last question, I think, is a pretty bold, but real question is, have you ever been arrested?
So just for the benefit of the recording, we have 25 respondents, that's 61% of the audience, holding up their hands for yes, they've been a physical alteration. 30 people raising their hands for having a drink and having driven home. 25 people have raised their hands for having urinated in public. 31 people have risen their hands for being accused of something you haven't done. And finally, 13 people, 30% of the audience today, have risen their hands for having been arrested before.
And so normally I would say, congratulations, you guys are all ConCreators. The reason why I asked this series of questions is because some of these questions you don't think as an actual crime, right? A physical altercation could lead to assault charges, right? Urinating in public is indecent exposure, and depending on how far that could be advanced in court, you know, you could potentially have to register as a sex offender. And so I hope that in answering these questions, we all have the ability to empathize with someone's circumstance and not just look at the fact that they have a felony or a criminal record as the defining moment for who that human being is, and that we can now sit down and have like a real talk about this subject. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my wonderful, amazing co-founder, Janeya Griffin, to tell you how dope she is.
I didn't pay him to say that, y'all. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Janeya Griffin. I am the co-founder and chief strategy officer here at ConCreates. And my story is a little different, though. I also spent a night in jail, but not to the extent of my team, to where, you know, they literally were locked away for years and years. Both of my parents actually went to jail when I was 16, and I ended up having to take care of my 6-year-old younger brother. And it wasn't for that long. I think the detrimental part for me came when, you know, after graduating from college, my mom couldn't find a job. And then I ended up having to come home and take care of her and my brother again. And I think, you know, just understanding the landscape of things to know that, you know, her resume was stacked, right? She had all of these degrees, bachelor's degrees in IT and all of this stuff, and no one would hire her because of her criminal record. And so that really hit home for me. And because I'm very solution oriented, I'm like, hey, I need to figure out how this can never happen to anyone ever again. And so that was kind of sort of my purpose, is like, I want to be able to put people in the position, especially those that have criminal histories or criminal records, so they never have to worry about, you know, where they're going to be able to get a job or how they're going to pay their bills or different things like that. And so when I met Vincent, the light bulb kind of came on, and I was just like, okay, this is it. This is the way that I should be going. And so we found out. So when we met, we were at the Global Startup Grind conference, and that was in Redwood City. And so we found out that we actually lived 15 minutes away from each other. And we were 6 hours away. And so, you know, after he told me his story, I told him my story. It kind of just blew up from there, and we became inseparable. And I think that was like 3 years ago. So, you know, I think with everything that I'm doing, so my day job, I work at NASA, and I basically take their patents and I find alternative uses for them. So it was really, there was a lot of alignment there when we started talking about what we were doing for this population, in, you know, Vincent being able to see the potential in people that they're not even able to see, and then me being able to partner up with him and tag team on, okay, where can these people actually be placed, and how do we take the skill set that they have and just basically transfer it into doing something that is legal versus something that they can get in trouble for. And so that's really what we tell people. Hey, we don't want to change who you are. We don't want to change what it is that you do. We just want to change where you do it and what you do it with. So there's so many different stories that, you know, we can tell around, you know, our co-founder. He's a bank robber and robbed 27 banks, but really the man is a pure genius, strategist, logistics expert. You know, Vince was a drug dealer, and so now he's, you know, dealing a different type of product that's more legal. So I think all of the skill sets that people possess, there's creativity in that. And so, you know, one of our main things is there's criminality, when there is no creativity for them, I'm sorry, the creativity without opportunity is where criminality comes in. And so, I think ConCreates is a place for us to be able to provide those opportunities for people to express that creativity so they don't go back into doing, what they've done before, because all they're trying to do is just survive. So yeah, I am happy to be here, and I'm excited to continue to have this conversation. Thank you for inviting us.
Excellent.
Well said. So with that being said, I would like to show you guys some work. This is a collaboration with 72 and Sunny that kind of tells our story and gives you guys hopefully a better understanding of like how dope we are. So.
Okay, please tell me if this doesn't work.
Everyone wants that earth-shattering, culture-driving, mind-blowing creativity. Only problem is, they're looking for it in all the same old places. See, that big creativity, it happens under pressure, when it's walled in, forced into a box, life or death. We're not talking the kind of creativity that gets you an A in art school. We're talking the kind it takes to rob a bank with 24/7 security and 2 days to plan. The kind that can launder a drug empire's money across 3 different countries. The kind that looks at a guarded national monument and sees a canvas. The kind of creativity that takes serious skill. The same kind that now sits in a cell 23 hours a day, just waiting to be put to better use. That's why we founded ConCreates, an agency that sources ideas from diverse creatives with criminal backgrounds. You get groundbreaking work, our con-creators get the second chance they deserve. Everyone wants outside-the-box ideas, but real creativity, it comes from the people who know that box really, really well. ConCreates, radical ideas from radical thinkers.
Okay, so there you go. That's the ConCreates proposition in a 60-second film. We're going to go into our first question here, and we'll start with Vincent. Vincent, what does ConCreates really bring to the communication industry?
Well, I would say it brings a multitude of things, right? It brings the diversity, I think, the diversity in thought and perspective. I think it amplifies voices that particularly go overlooked. And most importantly, I think it provides opportunity for folks who normally might not have the opportunity. I think a lot of formerly incarcerated and incarcerated people just don't know about the communications industry in general. And so we provide that awareness.
Awesome. Do you want to add anything to that, Janaya?
Yeah, authentic insights. That's, the other thing that we're bringing too, because like Vince said, we're bringing that diversity of thought, but mass incarceration is not biased to who it affects. And so not religion, race, gender, socioeconomic status, identity. We have everybody that basically, is it in this population. And so being able to tap into them and really get those insights from those different cultures, from those different backgrounds, I think that's really, our advantage over a lot of other agencies.
Yeah, I love that. I think, I think one of the things that you guys said from the very beginning that's always kind of stuck with me is that the kind of like radical kind of insights and ideas that you bring don't necessarily have to just be from the experience of being incarcerated. The ConCreators were people before they were incarcerated and they were afterwards. And just thinking about the diversity of experience just from that perspective as well. So I'm sure there's lots of questions and people scratching their heads around like, how does ConCreates work? I mean, half your creative department are behind bars. The other half are formerly incarcerated. So perhaps maybe Janaya, you can start with this one. How do we go from a potential brief from a client to kind of an idea?
Well, normally we'll have people reach out to us, or if there is a company that, we're just kind of bursting through the scenes to kind of like, hey, we really want to work with you. We love what you're doing. It really just all boils down to us meeting them and understanding, what some of their problems are, and then receiving a brief, so if there's a specific project, we'll receive the brief, we'll go over it, then we'll disseminate that to our team. And we'll pick specifically based on the profile of that ConCreator, who would be best fit to actually provide, these insights. So let's just say there's a bank, I won't throw out any names, but there's a bank and they might be looking for some sort of insight into the banking industry. Well, we have some bank robbers. We have some, security people that really understand those types of systems. And so we can better place them based on their backgrounds. And then once that brief is disseminated, we will basically aggregate all of their ideas and different things. Our executive team will go over them and kind of hone out which ones are, on brand, which ones are on message, and communicating exactly what they're looking for. And then we'll go ahead and we'll put together, our proposal on what that looks like. And that could be anywhere from a week to 3 weeks to 6 weeks. So it really just depends on the timeline of the campaign and what the company is looking for.
Awesome. Vincent, do you want to add anything? You're on mute, Vincent.
So she know how to say all the things. She said that perfect.
I think, one of the ways that, I always help explain this proposition to clients is it's a crowdsource network. Now, the notion of like crowdsource creativity isn't like mind-blowing, actually. Like there's lots of agencies that have been around for 10, 15 years who have leaned into the crowd, not just in advertising, but in all sorts of innovation and creative industries, right? I think what makes this company special is the crowd that we have. And it's this really unique mix of people that really offer radical ideas and authentic insights that perhaps like big communication companies, even ones who are kind of trying to push the agenda like ourselves in this, kind of definitely lack and could be using more of. So that's kind of always kind of how I thought about this. And actually, when you explain it that way to clients, they get their heads around it a little bit because they've heard of crowdsourcing. We're just working with a different crowd. We're going to ask one more prepared question and then go into, I think, some of the questions we're getting from the audience. I think it's just really important to understand what ConCreates' commitments are in terms of social impact and how that works. So perhaps you want to start with that one, Vincent.
Sure. I think, I'd rather answer the question in a story form. I think we're storytellers. But I mean, when I was in prison, I made $5.65 a month doing a job in prison. And so one of my main commitments is to actually be able to pay incarcerated folks as well as formerly incarcerated folks fairly, right? Like what is the actual rate for this particular job, and they should be getting exactly what that is, because the work shouldn't be cheaper just because you have criminal history. 10% of our company is owned by our network, meaning we profit share with our entire network. And ultimately, again, just to change the narrative and the stigma by showing up, doing the work, and executing radical ideas.
That's great. Do you want to add anything to that, Janaya?
Yeah, just one other thing. Vincent hit, the nail on the head with everything he just said. I think I kind of just want to bring attention to our poll earlier and how, a third of our population is literally some people who are incarcerated or have a criminal history. So that's 70 million people. And so with the poll, it actually aligns with the data. So there was 30% of people who actually responded to said that they have actually been arrested. So I, just really thinking about that, I think when we start talking about, social impact, it is also about rehumanizing people, because these are people, right? And so, like Vince said, that he was getting $5 an hour or $5 a month.
$5.65 a month.
Yeah, to do what? Like hard labor? Like this is insane. And so, the whole point in people going to to prison is to be rehabilitated. And so at what point do they gain their humanity back when they come home? They're already supposed to be rehabilitated. They're stripped away from their families. They're working for slave wages. And so I think, in everything that we do, we make sure, are we fulfilling our mission with every decision that we make, with every client that we take on? And I think it really goes to show how intentional we are, even with the strategies that we give out. We're making sure that we are giving those social impact strategies embedded into the products that we're producing as well. So I think it is a full holistic view when we start talking about social impact and social enterprise. So it's not just, how are we, doing that as a company, but how are we doing it individually as well?
Awesome. I think, I don't want to overlook the kind of paying people properly for their time piece. I think one of the things that got me very motivated to kind of partner with you guys and bring you into the 72 Sunny ecosystem was the fact there's over 3,000 brands right now that use prison labor that pay less than $1 an hour. Like for us, that's slave labor, right? I mean, and if you think about the kind of the history of the prison system and where it came from, there's some very direct lines there as well. But it's not just the rehabilitation piece; it's also the kind of like making sure people are paid properly for their time. Yep. And I think for the rest of the audience, the team of ConCreates are being a little shy here. They've actually been very successful in this and managed to argue top rate cards with some of the biggest tech firms for their ConCreators. We won't go into what that means, but it's hundreds of dollars an hour that they've managed to get their ConCreators paid, and that's the same rate that you get if you're a 72 and Sunny or something as well. So I'm super proud of these guys for managing to kind of hit that mark for those big companies. So they're too modest to say it themselves. But
I think it is something to note. I mean, you got people making less than $1 an hour now, making $125 an hour. As just to come up with ideas. And again, like I'm not trying to brag about the compensation, but ultimately our commitment, we fight in the boardroom, right? Mm-hmm. We're hammering it out, making sure that everything is fair. I mean, we have our own moral compass as well, what companies we won't work with because of certain things. We've turned down way more money than we've made because of that very same principle surrounding, prison labor and exploitation.
Exactly. Matthew, we'd probably like to take some questions now. Would you like to, what's the best way to do this? Should we read them, or have we got enough panelists that we can go to them, or?
Yeah, I think maybe we'll go to a couple of people, but there's definitely one universal or popped up with a few folks, Susan and Ayla and Sectra, along the lines of how do you recruit essentially, or what is that process like to build this network that you now have of these creative individuals that are participating, and what's that process like? How do you get involved? How do you hunt people? How do you also just get people to come to you and then go through the process of vetting them or whatever that is?
Yes, I hunt no one, right? Like let's be clear about that. I don't headhunt. A lot of that part of our process is a bit proprietary, but ultimately I was in prison with these folks, right? And so I left a lot of people behind, and as a part of the mission to build ConCreates and make this a successful business model and company, was in service to the men that I left behind. And so they serve as like recruiters and facilitators for us. And because I went to federal prison, it's one system, right? It's not like being confined to the state of California or whatever. You can do time anywhere in the country. And so these men and women that are a part of our network travel to different prisons around the country, and they have criteria that they look for to help us build our network stronger.
Do you have any, just to follow up, any kind of open submission or expression of interest on the part of people as well?
Yeah, I think from the outside of prison, yes, of course. Like you can literally go to our website and say, hey, I'm formerly incarcerated. I'm a ConCreator. I draw, I do this, I do that. And, come on, we'd obviously go through an onboarding process, right? We have surveys and things like that we kind of see where people are creatively. And, just like any other company, like we're looking for top-notch creatives. And so, yeah, we're super approachable. This is like a huge thing for us. We want to bring as many people into this fold as possible. So yes, hit us up online.
I was going to say, I think the only thing different from us is like your criminal history doesn't matter. Well, no, it does. It does, because that's what allows us to actually say like, oh, okay, well, no, you really not, a drug dealer, you're a marketer, or you're CEO of a, Fortune 500 company, or you're a logistics specialist or a strategist, graphic designer,
And I also think your criminal history is actually what gets you the job.
Yeah.
Not the thing that excludes you from it, but includes you, into the ranks. So.
Well, that's great.
Pretty soon we want to see, where companies are like, hey, do you have any criminal history? Because that would be a plus, right? That's a success for us when they start asking you like, so can you tell me more about this job?
Yeah. Hey, there was a great question from, I'm going to mispronounce the name here, but Lekha Chowdhury regarding the stigma amongst clients that perhaps, Matthew, would you like her to ask that, or should I read the question? What's the easiest way?
Yeah, hold on. Let me see if I can open up Lekha's mic, assuming she's ready. If we don't hear from her for a second, she may have stepped away, and you guys can just answer. There we go, Lekha. All right, I'm letting you talk, Lekha.
Hey guys, Lekha here. So this is something very interesting, like I have heard in a long time, especially during COVID, that something so positive is happening. So I believe that you must also face challenges when you are procuring new clients. How do you break that stigma among them? And like, especially at the start of the project, do you have lots of self-doubt or like doubting your work coming from the clients? And how do you manage that?
Sure. I think it's just like anything else, right? Like people have their own biases and whatnot. I think one of the things that we do effectively, I know it's hard to see how many years of prison experience is represented in our company when you solely just look at me or Janeya. But when we're on calls and we have our teams and there's 5 or 6 of us or 15 of us on one call, and you hear people say, I'm so-and-so, I did 17 years in prison, I'm chief creative officer, and of ConCreates. I think when you think about some of these companies that make these cultural faux pas, that I think Tim mentioned earlier, like the Pepsi kind of debacle or things like that, we like to kind of position it from a standpoint of like, what better people to make a comeback than people who have been 20 years, 23 years, and have come out of this situation and made their own comeback in life. I think brands really start to understand that. And I think the more that we actually connect with the decision makers and the people in the brands, the more we begin to humanize this population. And, so I think that's the best way we can navigate it.
The other thing I'll add on top of that is early on, when we were building this out, we strategically positioned ourselves with the advisors that we selected to sit on our board. And so, these are all questions that we've kind of asked ourselves. I have this thing where I say, we need to be bulletproof. So what that means is like, before they even have the question, we've already given them the answer to it, right? So there's no question. So how do we position ourselves to where like, we've already started to answer those questions? And the answer is the solution in which, we come up with these strategies. And so the strategy was like, hey, you might have some doubts with, working with people who are formerly incarcerated, but okay, that's fine. Hey, we understand that, but don't trust us, right? Trust Tim Jones from 72 and Sunny. Trust, the former head of Nike Global, or different people that we have specifically selected that are not only in alignment with our mission and what we do, but also are highly experienced and skilled within this industry and the industry that they're in.
Great. I think maybe next I'll go to my actual friend who is on today, Kieran Guja. She has a question. We've been talking a lot of sort of process of the organization, and I think Kieran's got a little question about product. What are you doing? Like, give us a story there. So hold on, let me let her. All right, Kieran, you're geared to go.
Hi, I just want to say this has been really, really great. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and sharing what ConCreates is doing. I'm so happy that I've learned about it, and thank you, Matt, for putting on this talk, because I think this is exactly the kind of creativity and inspiration that we need in these times. So yes, so my question was about some of the more, I guess, like, I think everything that you're doing is probably out of the box, but what are some of your more out of the box, like partnerships or campaigns or like projects that you've worked on?
I think that's always like the biggest question, right? Is everybody's just like, where's the work? Can we see the work? Can we see the work? There's a few things that are kind of in the works that obviously I can't really talk about. But just recently, so we have this term we like to use. We like to say that we're your favorite influencer's favorite influencer. And I say that because I just know a lot of influencers, right? And I'm able to call in favors and, you know, stuff like that. And so recently, on Monday, actually, we just launched a video that we produced for Mike Tyson, who actually is a formerly incarcerated athlete who is actually voting for the first time this year, which was an idea that we had, right? We had this idea that, hey, you know, Mike Tyson's never voted before. He didn't even know until I brought it up to him, right? It's like, what do you mean I can vote? You know, so we dropped this video into the world on Monday, I believe. And so I think it's fantastic for someone like him to, you know, represent ConCreates as a con-creator, but also as an influencer, but also getting the word out and bringing that kind of awareness around just the fact that some people that are formerly incarcerated just don't even know that they have the ability to vote. And so yeah, I'm proud of that piece of work.
Yeah, that got a lot of press coverage recently as well. I'll just pop one of the links in there so you guys can start to see the impact of that. But yeah, I think the combination of the cultural moment around who votes at the moment and also obviously ConCreates' unique experience really kind of led to a kind of powerful idea there.
Are there any another good friend and alum of the business school, Andy Yost, is also kind of in a follow-up? That's one particular. Any other case in which you've had like that, another great, that insight that came sort of like this did of, hey, we've realized a lot of people who are formerly incarcerated aren't even aware of their rights to vote. Any other examples like that you've popped up or begun to work on where you've kind of seen something that wouldn't have come to maybe a general agency?
Well, sure. I think even on some of our first work with MeUndies was that kind of insight. So when you think about folks sitting in prison, especially in a men's prison, one of the most important things, and I think the most common denominator, the thing that brings not only the guards and the staff, but the inmates and everybody together, is sports, right? Super Bowl is the only thing in America that actually changes count time. And I say count, let me have to educate a little bit on count time. At 4 o'clock every day, you stand for a standing count. This is across the entire country, right? 4 o'clock is count time. This is the only, not Christmas, not Thanksgiving. There's no holiday that changes count time except the Super Bowl. So I say that to say our first initial work came from that insight from a bunch of folks sitting in prison, watching sports, where we were able to put a moment together that actually took me undies to the next level.
Yeah, I'm going to add another example there as well. It was for a project that actually didn't end up going forward, but the insight I thought was so powerful. It was actually around the notion of the census and kind of the need to participate in order to be represented. And obviously, there's lots of populations who are suspicious of the census, and this was actually before all the kind of controversy started, so they had suspicions before. And we were like, okay, so what's our insight into these populations around kind of like the kind of thought or the idea we could look at that would encourage people to take part in the census? And I think the insight that ConCreates came back with really that, like, you know, a lot of people see filling out the census as like a chore or a piece of admin that you just have to do. But actually for this group, being counted is actually an act of rebellion. It's an act of being counted and like putting your hand up and standing up and like representing. So thinking about like filling out the census as an act of rebellion was an incredibly powerful, I thought, like insight or beginnings of a creative idea that I'm pretty sure would not have come out of a mainstream agency necessarily thinking about it that way. It would have taken us a while to get something like that. So that was, I think, one of the first examples that I saw from ConCreates. So I was like, wow, they think very, very differently, and that kind of diverse audience really bring unique perspectives into marketing. So that's what got us on board originally.
Great. I also see Susan, if you're there, you've kind of, I think, had some of your questions answered, but I think you're also curious about, you know, what can we do to help if we're believing in this mission? So Susan, I'm going to give you a moment on the mic, although, wait. There she is. Great. All right, go ahead, Susan.
First of all, this is incredibly moving and powerful. I know several people, one who's formerly incarcerated, one who is incarcerated now. And for those individuals who don't have access to the internet, who might want to be ConCreators, how can we get the word out to them? Let them know about you and let you know about them. I mean, it's just extraordinary. And I mean, also, how can we support you? Are you a 501c3? Can we invest in ConCreates? I mean, what can we do to support you?
So I think I'll take this one. No, I'm saying.
Love it.
So first off, for your people behind the walls and your formerly incarcerated folks that you know, we're always here to support. And even if it's not even something creative, if we could point them in the right direction, you know, just really just understanding the struggle and knowing what comes with that, I think we also lend that to this population of folks. The second thing is for the folks that don't have internet, it's usually snail mail. Like, we have an address, you can write us. We got a whole team of people that just take letters, scan them in, you know, get the information, and we become your pen pal, you know? So that's the other way. And we're not a 501c3. We are a for-profit prison. We are a for-profit company.
No.
No, that's not what it is. But one of the things that we have been exploring, though, is becoming a social enterprise, like a B corporation, where because I think we already do that naturally, and so. But we are for profit and would definitely have a discussion about investment. But I think that's more of for a discussion offline.
I'll put you in touch, Susan. Great.
One more thing to add to that, though. And so the best way that I can say that you could support us is to hire us. And I don't mean that from a standpoint of like, hey, we just want to work and, and give us money. Another part of that story for me is when I got out of prison, and since I've been building this company, I've lost 4 con-creators to street violence. And my whole mission is to be able to provide a sustainable living situation for these men and women where they could move out of these neighborhoods where they come from that potentially could cause them harm. And so I live with that every single day. And so every moment or opportunity that we have to do another job or another project, you put someone's life and you change the trajectory of their lives. And so that's how I say to support us is hire us.
Yeah, I just add to that. I mean, you might be able to hire ConCreates directly. You might know somebody in an advertising agency or communications agency who could be working with ConCreates. You might know someone in a brand or a kind of a client company who needs marketing services. So, you know, think about your network in that way.
Great. I see. I'm going to give Melissa, who's hopefully prepped, a chance for the mic. She is part of the REAP program that I talked about that the business school is running. So let's wait. Hold on. Melissa just disappeared from the top. Hopefully she's still here if I can find her. Melissa, can you raise your hand again if you are still out there? There we go. Great. Thank you. All right, you're on.
That was quick, Melissa.
I lowered my hand when you called my name just so that I wouldn't forget, but thank you. And thanks, Janaya and Vincent, for being here. It's, you know, I took a class at Columbia on mass incarceration in the US back in the end of the summer. And that really sort of was my first parlay into knowledge about this topic. And it's been, I'm life-changing, really. And it's something that I talk to friends about and family about. And in a lot of these discussions, you know, I think people obviously, and I'm sure you've seen this, people get very almost skittish and think, oh my goodness, but these people have, you know, may have killed someone or done something bad. And why would you want them in your company or and others? And I think the general message is really like, if public safety matters to you, then futures for these people needs to matter too. And they need to be able to employ themselves, support a family and all of that. But, you know, the next question sometimes is like, well, at what point do we take things too far and essentially make it seem like one can commit a crime and then serve time and then come out and life is easy breezy? And does that sort of counter the scariness, so to speak, of the criminal justice system to start? So I was just curious, and, you know, I think I could come up with my own arguments against that, but I was just curious to get your perspective on that and how you would respond, especially as someone who, you know, was incarcerated yourself.
Sure. I mean, I think, you know, we automatically think because I went to prison, I was just a horrible human being, right? But I was guilty, right? I did what I did. I take full responsibility for my actions, right? But I just firmly believe that everybody just deserves a second chance. If I go to prison, this is why they call it paying your debt to society. I've paid my debt for that thing. And so to continue to be punished for that, to me, is what we're fighting against, not fighting against the fact that someone committed a crime. I think there are people who deserve to be in prison. I deserve to go to prison for the things that I did. And so, again, I feel like I paid my debt to society, and this is my contribution to humankind, right? This is my ability to reconcile with humankind for what I've done or what we've done as a collective. And so I just find it kind of, I'm trying to think of a more polite way to say it, but I'm gonna just say how I'm gonna say it. I just find it odd, right? I find it a bit odd that a company can sell your data or a company can benefit off of prison labor, slave labor, and and I'm still judged long after I serve my time for that. But we can forgive these companies and we can sweep it under the rug. And I'm not saying, hey, pointing the finger and saying we're all wrong. I'm just saying the system's fucked up. And if there's a way for us to come together and just literally just be real and say, look, I messed up, you messed up. How do we make this thing better? Right. And so I don't know if that answers your question. I feel like I got a little off track, but I think everybody deserves a second chance. I paid my debt to society.
Yeah, that's sorry, Janaya, go.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'll add in there that we're all one decision away from having criminal history or having a criminal record. Not a good decision, not a bad decision, just one decision. Like you can get in a car with somebody and have the best intentions and be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or, maybe the officer is just not as friendly or, decides like, hey, I want to charge you with, lewd acts of conduct publicly. And so now like you have to register as a sex offender. And so like there are all these different things that I think everybody actually is violating a law or, committing a crime that maybe they just haven't been caught for, or maybe it just isn't deemed as like super bad in society. I think Vincent told me one time, one of their buddies got locked up for violating the Air Rights Act or something like that.
Clean Air Act.
That's Clean Air Act. And it's just like, what? Like, so there's all these different rules and laws that we live by every single day that none of us really know when we are actually committing these crimes. And I think it just all boils down to we're all human. We all make mistakes, and that we need to have a bit more empathy for people who deserve second chances, which is everyone, right? And even if we're looking at it from an economic standpoint, $65 billion is lost in economic activity every day because of our population that is behind bars. And these are people within the prime working years of their lives who can be taking care of their families, who can be reducing, the wealth gap, who can be adding to the economic prosperity of our country. And we're losing out on that because we decide, hey, we want to opt in for getting free labor or something like that so that corporations can actually, win. So yeah, I'm not going to go.
But, I'm glad you underlined that, Janaya, that the kind of idea that everybody deserves a second chance is like a core belief of ConCreates. And when we're talking to prospective clients, if you don't believe that, then ConCreates isn't the right agency to work with. So what we don't get into with prospective clients is what specific crimes did what specific ConCreators commit that are working on your brief. Clients don't get to pick. I'll have people who violate the Clean Air Act, but I won't have people who are in prison for perhaps more senior crimes. You don't get to pick that. You don't get to know. But you got to buy into that as a proposition that everyone deserves a second chance, and this is part of that.
I'm going to take host prerogative here for a moment as we're coming to the end. And I know, Tim, you may have a last follow-up, but, you guys have talked a lot about, right, what you were incarcerated for is this skill set that we're looking for. In talking about diversity and obviously the folks that are part of your network, is there also advantages you're seeing from just background of their diversity that's really helping brands? Because let's be frank, Tim, 72 and Sunny, the kind of hires and the people who work in the industry generally are, educated, well-to-do, et cetera. And are there elements of that diversity because you have a very different, more general population kind of group that works but part of your network?
No, I think that's the misconception, right? I think that's just like saying Mike Tyson didn't know he could vote as a felon. We have former congressmen in our network. I have stock exchange agents. These guys went to prison they got caught taking a bribe in a sting. They were supposed to make sure that these publicly traded companies were in compliance. And, you know, they're like, these companies were paying these guys to say that it was compliant. Like I don't think there is a limit. When you think about federal prison, you think, I think Martha Stewart, right?
Yeah, it was less about the fact that you might have diversity, that maybe your diversity is just broader from top to bottom in terms of the type of people who are part of it. Not necessarily that there are not educated people that, you know, have college degrees, et cetera, in that situation. But I'm guessing you might have a broader array of people in your network.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
go
ahead, Tim. Sorry.
No. You. Or you.
I was just going to add, I think that that's what really, you know, sets us apart and does make us unique because, you know, I like to say, you know, how do you, like if somebody is asking the question, like if you're staring at a problem, the same problem that you've been staring at, you know, with the same set of eyes, like, how do you fix it? Well, you bring in a new pair of eyes to look at it, right? Maybe somebody who doesn't have the same background as you, maybe somebody who hasn't gone to the same, you know, university as you did and hasn't had that same traditional, you know, training. And so I think that is an added benefit because we bring a different perspective, right? We talk about radical ideas, we're thinking outside of the box. It's real because that's exactly what we had to do. We literally, you know, if you're thinking about people who are committing crimes, a lot of them are committing them because they're trying to survive. And so they're taking nothing and turning it into something so that they can live every single day. And so that type of ingenuity, that type of genius, like how do we now take that, bottle it up and bring it into the ad space? That's exactly what we're doing.
Excellent. Tim, I think I will leave it for you to prime Vincent and Janeya on a final word.
Yeah, I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but just to wrap things up, I think a great way to end might be to help everyone understand what they can do to help ConCreates, but also help further the kind of the journey of the formerly incarcerated and currently incarcerated within the US.
Yeah, I think I would say the same thing, like hire us. I think the more projects that we can work on, the more of the brilliance that you get to see that's beyond and behind bars, and the more opportunity you provide for these men and women to change the trajectory of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add on to that, like, you know, your network is your net worth. And so, you know, because you guys are here with us today, you're now in our network. And so share, like, subscribe, share with all of your video. I think it's really changing our perspectives. And that is one of our main missions and our goals is to change that stigma and that narrative. And this is the way that we're doing it, by the work that we're producing, by the work that we're doing, by the people that we're working with. And so I think people just need to see a different narrative that exists. And so if you can share our story and the story of our ConCreators and the work that we're doing with all of your network, that would be great.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I saw some questions earlier around who does ConCreates work with. It's not exclusive to 72 and Sunny in any way at all. So ConCreates work with and partner with any kind of advertising or communications agency, and they also work directly with clients and brands as well on slightly different models, but completely open source. So you don't have to come to 72 and Sunny to work with ConCreates.
Perfect. Tim, Vincent, Janeya, thank you so much for being here. Let's give them a virtual round of applause.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. So we'll be, everyone here, we'll be adding you, if you weren't already, onto our Center on Global Brand Leadership contact list. So you'll get follow-up on this when the recording is available. Other events that we run in our very diverse view of what it takes to build a strong brand. And we're wishing you, to be safe and healthy and happy in the midst of the what's going to happen next world of 2020. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.